I'll ask the representatives of the Commission on the Comprehensive Study of the Doctrine of the Ministry to come to the platform, and also Dr. Dwight Cromer to report the action of the Executive Council with regard to these bylaws, which are the first part of the report of that commission. Come to the platform, please. Microphone 1, Dr. Grafe.
Mr. President, I'm aware that this has been a long day for you as well as for many delegates here, and yet I believe that it would enable the agenda of this convention to allow more time for the many items of concern before us if we would extend the time this evening. I move that this session be extended to 11 p.m.
A motion to extend the time of adjournment to 11 has been seconded and is before you. Microphone 7, Dr. Wick.
I wish to speak on another matter, but related.
All right, we have before us the motion to extend the time. All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed will say no. No. The motion is lost. Microphone 7, Dr. Wick.
Well, the burden of my concern, Mr. President, is the tremendous volume of business that still remains before us. Would it be in order, therefore, Mr. President, to suggest a limit of debate on the matter concerning the doctrine of the ministry to an hour and a half? If so, I would like to try it and so move it.
The motion is to limit debate on the report of the Commission on the Comprehensive Study of the Doctrine of the Ministry. Is there a second? All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. I believe the ayes have it. It is adopted. Debate will be limited to an hour and a half. This means that we will need to limit discussion on each item as we go along. Microphone 5, Dr. Sagerhammer.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to try this on for size that we extend the session until 10:30.
All right, you think that endurance is more bearable. Very good. Is there a second? Motion is to extend our session to 10:30. All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The time will continue until 10:30. Microphone 3.
John Christ, Upper New York. Mr. President, I seek a point of privilege.
Surely.
I should like to read a statement from the Association of Lutheran Clergy and Professional Lay Workers, which deals with this entire statement.
Your privilege is granted if you take no more than 5 minutes.
May I also request distribution of this statement to the Assembly?
That would take action by the Committee on Reference and Counsel.
I shall overlook that. Okay. The Association of Lutheran Clergy and Professional Lay Workers, Statement on Doctrine of Ministry Commission. Number 1. As of May 18, 1970, the report, which is to be acted on by the June 1970 Convention of the Lutheran Church in America, had not been available to the congregations of the church body or to the ministerium it so directly concerns. The steering committee of the association was instructed by the association's meeting of May 1 to make a direct attempt to obtain copies for evaluation. They were informed by the commission chairman, and this is a quote, "I am sorry that additional copies of the report are not available. This is not as a result of the desire of the commission. We had requested that 1,000 copies be duplicated for distribution in response to just such requests as yours, but we were turned down for financial reasons, among others." End of quote. At the time of the convention, there will therefore have been no opportunity for prior discussion of the report. Those present at the convention will be ill prepared, and the majority of the ministerium will not have been consulted in any way. This procedure is intolerable. Moreover, members of the commission signed the report in January with the explicit understanding that its text would immediately be published. In this situation, congregations and clergy should regard themselves as bound by any convention action on the report only insofar as subsequent reflection and discussion confirm its wisdom. Number 2, the association had hoped to publish a constructive evaluation of the theology and practical proposals of the report. At the last possible time of writing, this had not become possible. We remain dependent on leaks and second-hand reports. Some who have reflected on such leaked information have not found it reassuring. They fear that the proposals will prove half-hearted and the theology misleading. The notions that the clergy differ from the laity in being official representatives or that professional training is their main qualification are clearly sub-evangelical. The association hopes the above-mentioned fears will prove mistaken. However, in the absence of the report, the association can responsibly do no more than ask the convention to examine the report with a very critical eye. The clergy are in desperate need of a clear and penetrating statement of their function in the church. A half-hearted attempt will be worse than none at all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Anderson, for the Commission on the Ministry.
we appreciate the concern mentioned by this group of pastors. It is certainly also our intention that the convention have the best possible opportunity to discuss it. I would call the attention of the delegates first to the fact that we have just been limited to an hour and a half, which must indicate that they are, in a sense, ready to make up their minds on these issues. I would also mention that copies of the entire report appeared in the May 1970 issue of Minister's Information Service, which was an ample time for the members of this group to make some response if they so wished. We're sorry that it didn't come out earlier. We were trying to deal with issues which we felt the convention ought decide. You are the convention. We hope you will take the time to consider and decide wisely.
Now, in case you have not found the place where we will be working, it is in the Bulletin of Reports, page 259, starting with recommendation A. And I think you would like to know that Dr. Steinley completed tests in the hospital today and will be dismissed tomorrow. He may show at the convention hall before we adjourn. At least the illness was of short duration, and we're grateful for that. Now, Dr. Voigt Cromer to report for the Executive Council with regard to the 5 bylaw amendments listed on pages 259 and 260.
Mr. President, members of the convention, the proposed amendments of bylaws all are in section 2 of the LCA bylaws and pertain to items 1, 5, 10, 11, and 14 of that section. The record of the Executive Council's action on the bylaw amendments referred is recorded as follows in the minutes of the meeting of June 28, 1970. Following extended consideration of the 5 proposed amendments to the bylaws included in the report of the Commission on the Comprehensive Study of the Doctrine of the Ministry, the Executive Council voted that these proposed amendments be recommended to the 1970 Convention for its consideration without a position being taken by the Executive Council. Now, Mr. President, do you wish a motion that this report be accepted?
No motion is necessary. If you wish to give any interpretation of the Executive Council's action, you have that privilege.
Very succinctly, I would like to state the basis on which the Executive Council made this decision. The Commission on the Comprehensive Study of the Doctrine of the Ministry was created by convention action with the instruction to report the results of its study to the church in convention. The report of its study has been submitted to this convention in a manner which presents several of the recommendations on major issues embraced in the study in the form of proposed amendments to the bylaws of the church. This resulted in an automatic referral of such proposals to the Executive Council. Inasmuch as a specialized commission has made an extensive and thorough exploration of the subject and has set forth the results of its study for the convention, the Executive Council has concluded that a more direct and satisfactory consideration of the issues will be achieved if the convention is permitted to approach all of the Commission's recommendations in the same manner and without prejudice.
Thank you, Dr. Cromer. Dr. Ermarth.
Thank you. I should like permission to address the Assembly for about 3 minutes before the debate on its recommendations begins. This Commission would like once more, as it has already done in its hearing session, to attempt to put its work, its deliberations in proper perspective, and to point out once more the main thrust of its effort. I think this is particularly necessary not only for this Assembly, but also for the members of the press. I realize that I am treading on delicate ground here, treading very lightly perhaps in very heavy footsteps made by a very prominent federal official. Nevertheless, I would recommend to the press that instead of zeroing in on the volatile and interesting and important issue of the ordination of women exclusively, that it pay some attention, along with the delegates to this convention, to the rich matrix out of which this whole issue arose, and to the objectives of our study, which go far beyond the issue that is at stake tonight. I recommend to the delegates that they study the recommendations, preceding the recommendations, the position statements, which clarify the purposes and language of the recommendations. And following the recommendations, a short position paper entitled "The Role of Women in the Life of the Church," which is the work of a subcommittee of the Commission charged with the problem of reviewing the problem of the ordination of women. Now, the subcommittee determined from the beginning that the matter of the ordination of women could not be discussed in isolation. Therefore, a complete study of the role of women in the life of the Church was undertaken against the background of the tumultuous social and cultural revolutions in our own society and throughout the world. Revolutions which certainly more than touch the churches and touch especially the lives of one half the human beings who happen to be female, and who constitute, among other things, 1/3 the labor force of this country, a large part of the support of our churches, and constitute, I might add, 100% of the mothers, sisters, wives, and daughters of everybody here. I should also hastily add that the distribution of these functions I thoroughly approve and hope we will maintain by vote if necessary. Now, conscious of the requirements of simple justice, not equality in the sense of sameness, but equality in the very real sense, conscious of a concept, a very real concept of the freedom of the Christian, conscious of the concept of the sacredness of human personality and promise, conscious of the ongoingness of God's creative activity in the world, and conscious that the voice of the Holy Spirit cannot be confined by tradition, culture, doctrine, or sex. The Commission has arrived at its conclusions. It should be obvious that the target of our efforts lies beyond the problem of the ordination of women. We have a right to hope that the Spirit which now might move us to emancipate one half of our fellowship into the fullest possible service in the Church will also give us so illuminated and transcendent a vision of true community that our Church may be strengthened for the enormous tasks that lie before us, indeed, which we are now immersed. We do indeed have reason to worry about identities, man-woman relationships, father-mother family relationships, the image of the pastor, the image of the woman in her role as a church worker. But if we can manage to concentrate upon our true Christian identity, these other relationships, so filled with beauty and so fraught with danger, may rise to heights of transcendent creativity and acquire their true perspective. The Holy Spirit may indeed teach all of us what it means to be truly human and to work in true community. This vision, at least, we share in common. And to conclude my remarks, I should like to quote Dr. Schutz's remarks this morning that a new era of vigorous discipleship seems to be about to dawn. I hope the women may participate in it to the fullest of their abilities and to the extent of your wishes.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I have one correction to make in the manuscript, or in the typed edition of our paper. In the position paper, page 268, in the left column, item 4A, line 2. It reads original creative structuring. That's bad. It's ongoing creative structuring.
Thank you. Microphone 8.
Carl Moyer, layman, Central Pennsylvania Synod. I'd like to share some concern which is, I suppose, partly related to the delegate who spoke prior. I don't know the man. I was totally unaware of both his organization and what he was going to say. I'm concerned for the attitude of the constituency at home on the total ramifications of the question with which we are dealing. We've had the benefit of 2 years of study at absolutely the grassroots level on the question of confirmation, and I know for one, at least, that many of my fellow delegates from my own territory can vote positively on such a decision and go home in full confidence that it will be accepted rather well. Now, we are in a position to see the church declining, both in numbers and in financial support of the church. I'm concerned that some of the decline of our church is due to a breach between the membership of the church and some decisions which we could make here. This decision we are about to discuss has some major impact in the life of the church, in the life of the congregations, and I'm not sure that I can understand that the issues are earth-shaking in terms of the doctrine of the church so much as of the polity and the practice of the church. And I'm not sure, really, whether the issues which we have heard are more important than those both of the understanding of the constituency and of our ecumenical relationships. I'm concerned that the decisions we might make could produce us even greater troubles at home. I would like to move you, sir, the following: that the action on the report of the Commission on the Comprehensive Study of the Doctrine of the Ministry be deferred until the 1972 Convention of the Lutheran Church in America, and that during the years 1970, 1971, and 1972, the report be studied at the congregational level.
May we have a copy, please? The motion is to defer until 1972. Is it seconded? I hear no second. The motion is seconded. Debate will be upon the motion to defer. Microphone 9, Dr. Wentz.
Fred Wentz of Ohio. We're still discussing this first bylaw, are we not?
That was the item immediately before us. He has asked to defer the whole report.
I would like to speak in favor of the first bylaw.
You'd best wait a moment. Microphone 3, Dr. Lowe.
I would like to speak in opposition to this proposed reference or deferral. It is true that we may be in trouble by actions. It may be true that we will have difficulties, as this gentleman says. That will come not because we defer action or take action. We are in trouble, and there are many issues that are in trouble. I think the majority of this House is ready to take action at this point and to speak as clearly as the Commission has asked us to speak, and I would hope that we would defeat this motion.
We've heard one speech in favor of deferral. We've heard one speech in opposition. I wonder if you are ready to vote. The motion is that action on the report of the Commission on the Comprehensive Study of the Doctrine of the Ministry be deferred until the 1972 convention of the LCA, and that during the years 1970, 71, 72, the report be studied at the congregational level. All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion is lost. We proceed with debate upon the recommendation A1 in the report of the Commission. The amendment is before you. It's simply a striking of the word man and insertion of the word person, and I recognize at microphone 9, Dr. Wentz.
Mr. President, I would like to speak in favor of this. I wanted also to speak against what was just defeated by pointing out that if there are no basic theological objections to the ordination of women, and our theologians have been telling us this now for some months and years, even an Inter-Lutheran Commission came to this conclusion, then it is immediately pressing upon us, it seems to me, to rectify those structures that have been based wrongly with a different theological understanding, to provide, as Dr. Ehrenmarth said, the freedom of 50%, roughly speaking, the freedom of choice and the freedom of vocation of half of the human race that is within the Lutheran Church in America. I do not think I need to tell over the arguments, and do not want to, but I want to serve notice, give a declaration of intention that if and when this action is taken in positive fashion, I would like to introduce a germane motion when the floor is available to provide some implementation of clearing of the structures and allowing for this freeing to take place.
Thank you. Microphone 3, Mr. Baumann.
Mr. President, I wish to move the previous question on the item now before the House.
This would cut off debate on the ordination of women. All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. We proceed to vote on the amendment to the LCA bylaws, Section 2, Item 1, as printed in the Bulletin of Reports at page 259. It is a matter of striking the word man and inserting the word person. All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. I wonder whether the Commission would now want to present to the Convention its recommendations B1 and C1 and 2, which are matters of referral to the Executive Council, since the Executive Council has the responsibility of preparing amendments to the approved Constitution for synods and the approved Constitution for congregations when changes in the bylaws of the Church require it.
Mr. President, do you want me to read them through?
I see no reason to read them through. It is a matter of changing the word man, and in one case young man, to the word person, and therefore nothing substantially different from the bylaw change just voted so overwhelmingly and vociferously. And I would think that it would be in order, according to the documents, therefore, for your Commission simply to recommend that items B1 and C1 and 2 be referred to the Executive Council for action.
That's what I do then.
These women can be obedient. Is there any debate on the motion to refer, which is completely in line with our rules? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. Dr. Wentz. Microphone 9.
May I make the motion germane to these actions?
Yes, I believe this has been distributed, hasn't it?
It is being distributed.
It is being distributed. A resolution that Dr. Wentz wishes to make is being distributed because it is such a long resolution. Pages, there's a whole section here. It is a 3-point resolution with the third point having 9 items. Will you read it to us, Dr. Wentz?
That the Lutheran Church in America and Convention assemble urge its members, its congregations, its synods, its auxiliaries, its relevant boards and commissions, and all its leaders, 1, to encourage qualified young women to seek and to fulfill calls into the ordained ministry, 2, vigorously and creatively to provide a facilitating climate and supportive structures for this process, and 3, specifically to ensure that 9, if I may insert a comment, 9 specific indications, which are those that were adopted by the Board of Directors of Lutheran Church Women some weeks ago. 1, opportunities for service in the ordained ministry are presented on a continuing basis to young men and young women in LCA congregations. 2, seminaries of the Church make it publicly known that they welcome women students for the ordained ministry. 3, provision is made within seminaries for adequate personal counseling of women students. 4, a climate is created within seminaries which supports the acceptance of women theological students. 5, seminaries encourage women to pursue advanced study in theological disciplines and call women to their faculties as they qualify for teaching particular disciplines. 6, presidents of synods actively seek congregational calls for women ordinands. 7, congregations are encouraged to call women pastors. 8, boards and commissions of the LCA and synods call ordained women to staff positions. 9, boards and commissions of the LCA and committees of synods actively seek ordained women members. And I would hope we can take this up seriatim so that we can adopt the first 2, and if we get embroiled in the third one, can take relevant action.
I would rather try to take it as a whole. Okay. Microphone 5, Dr. Hackman.
I'm not referring to this, I'm just asking a question. In light of the action we have just taken, will the proper change, editorial change, be made in the 2 sentences below in the paragraph where it begins, "He shall comply with the Constitution and then the synod of which he is a member, will these be changed to the minister as it was recommended in the other areas, or should be at least?
I think we will find ourselves in a considerable editorial process that we probably can live with for a year. Dr. Wentz, microphone 9.
It has just been pointed out to me that it is prejudicial to say young women and that we better take the young out. I believe
right.
that is correct. I would like to do that.
All right, which line?
That's under item 1.
It's the 1.
First one.
Yes, in the first line of the resolution, strike out the word young. The resolution is before you as a whole, unless anyone wishes to pick out any item for discussion. Any discussion? All in favor will indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted.